welcome back to my channel. I'm James. Today we're going to be doing another one of my popular, most wanted, and upcoming 80s movies on 4K Ultra HD. In this video series, I do a ton of big announcements, surprise reveals, and just kind of take a fun trip down memory lane through the 80s. All of these great movies that are very nostalgic, or things that are great memories we have of growing up or watching these great films from the decade of the 80s. And this is part 2 in my most wanted and upcoming 80s video series. Now, I've done a bunch of these. If you haven't checked out any of these here on my YouTube channel already, there's a bunch of them. So I've done the previous 80s one. This is part 2, continuing all of the titles that I couldn't talk about in that first one. And then I've done 90s, and I've done 2000s, and I've done 70s. So if you haven't checked out any of those videos in this video series, you're gonna wanna go check out those videos after you get done watching this one. And in this video, I share a bunch of studio insider information of things that are being worked on, things that are being announced, things that are planned for upcoming 4K releases, and then some things that just aren't coming to 4K at all, and let you know if it's basically the Blu-ray is the best we're gonna get. But it's a really fun time taking this trip down memory lane through the 80s. Now, for this decade, I stick to 1980 to 1989. So anything that's 1990 or anything that's 1979 does not qualify. So when you're commenting below with titles you hope come out on 4K, as always for this video series, I know a lot of you, it's hard to do, but for this comments below, make sure to stick to the decade that we're talking about, which is 1980 to 1989 titles only. But as some of you know, I do give you a hard time when you don't stick to the decade that the video's about. But as most of you know that have watched these videos in this video series, it is a very enjoyable thing remembering a lot of these, that a lot of people have forgotten how many great movies came out in these decades. So let's dive right into this. To start off with, one of my most wanted titles is the 1985 Silverado. If you've seen this film, Lawrence Kasdan did an amazing job with this film. It is one of the best westerns from the 80s. Holds up well today, and I can tell you some exciting news about this. I did just find out that Sony is planning this for a future 4K Ultra HD release. So that's some pretty darned exciting news, because I absolutely love this Western film. If you remember it, the cast is a massive ensemble cast. You've got Kevin Costner, Kevin Kline, Danny Glover, John Cleese. I mean, literally, I could go on all day about the cast on this and list off just some of them here. It is massive. And the film is absolutely wonderful and one of the best westerns that I still love to this day. So I'm hugely excited to know that this is coming out on 4K Ultra HD. Now, any of these you're excited or surprised that I announce in this video series, make sure to comment down below and let me know what of these you're excited for. Next up, we have the 1987 comedy classic Overboard. And this has Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell in it. It's absolutely hilarious. I have some good news about this. MGM, as a lot of you know that I've talked about in previous videos in this series, have been selling off their 4K rights and Blu-ray releasing rights for a lot of their studio titles. This is one of them that was just recently sold. My understanding is this is being planned for a future 4K Ultra HD release. So that's pretty cool. One of my personal favorites from 1989 is Always by Steven Spielberg. If you've seen this film, it's a very sentimental film, well done, but absolutely exudes the music and feeling of films from the 80s. I really have always loved this film. I can tell you that this is being planned by Universal for a future 4K Ultra HD release. So we should see this coming out here within the next 2 years. Usually when Universal starts working on and planning on something, we usually see it within about a year and a half at the latest. And that's something I've noticed a lot with when they start to work on something, then usually about a year to a year and a half, we see it on 4K Ultra HD. So I'm hugely excited about this because, as most of you know, Steven Spielberg is one of my all-time favorite directors of all time. I absolutely love this film. This will be an awesome 4K release if done correctly. Next up, we have Conan the Barbarian from 1982, one of my personal favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger films. I absolutely love the first one and the second one. I even like Red Sonja for another reason, even though it's not technically the exact same thing or continuing the story. It's kind of on its own separate universe type thing. But I do like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think he was great in those films. I really want them to make the final third one that they've already have written and would be awesome with Arnold as he's older in it. But anyhow, I digress here for a minute. So anyhow, the Conan the Barbarian, the rights holders have announced they've actually been working on a 4K restoration. But that's about all, and that was several years ago they announced that was being worked on, and nothing has come about since. So I don't know if it's something they had originally planned and then kind of dropped off the board, or it's being worked on secretly by another studio, maybe Studio Canal or something like that. I don't know. All I know is it was talked about many years ago and then kind of disappeared off the board. But that would be a really cool 4K Ultra HD release, both the first, the second one, and then I really hope they make that third film they basically talked about a lot. If you've heard about it, the idea behind it is pretty darn cool. An older Conan and, you know, kind of a gray beard and actually using Arnold Schwarzenegger as older now. Man, that'd be a pretty darn cool film. I just hope it actually gets released. Next up, we have Witness from 1985. This is an absolutely great Harrison Ford 80s film. It's kind of basically the story of, he's basically a cop and he goes into undercover to protect actually a witness that saw a crime, and it's in an Amish community. It's got such a cool vibe and feeling to it. It's got some great action in it with some romance, all mixed together perfectly. I love the film itself, and this is one of those releases I really hope Warner Brothers is going to release during this 100th anniversary. The hard thing is Warner Brothers has been very slow, as you'll notice later on in this video when I announce some of their other releases. But this is not one of them they've announced that they're working on for 4K restoration or anything. But I would love it along with all of Harrison Ford's other like 90s films. Just like The Fugitive that I talked about that I am looking forward to when they release that on 4K. But sadly, this is one they have not announced. Now, any of these that you're wanting to buy or any of these 4Ks that I announced that are available for pre-order that are coming out, I post all those direct links in the description section and as a pinned comment in the comment section below. Just like this one, even if there's not a 4K announced for it, I put the Blu-ray link directly down there below. So if you want to check out the film and get it, a lot of these Blu-rays, some of them that aren't out of print aren't too expensive anymore. Like this one's not too expensive to get a hold of. So if you want to check out this film, I don't know that we're going to get a 4K. Either way, I'll post that link directly in the description section and as a pinned comment in the comment section below. So if you want to buy any of these, make sure to click on those links down there below. It's very important to the creation of videos just like this. Those links down there never cost you even a penny extra, but they do help to support the creation of videos like this just a tiny bit. So make sure if you want to buy any of these releases or you're going to pre-order any of them, to click on those links I've posted down below. Another Harrison Ford film from 1988 is Working Girl. Now this is one of those I could not find my Blu-ray copy, and I'll be honest with you, I was pretty upset that I couldn't find it, and here's why. Working Girl has been out of print for numerous years. The Blu-ray release has gotten extremely expensive as the years have gone on. It ranges anywhere between $30 for a used open copy in barely good condition, all the way up to, I've seen it up to $90 for a copy of it. So it's been out of print for a long time and there's a reason for it. 20th Century Fox and Disney now owns it. They don't have any plans to release it. They're not re-releasing it as far as I understand at all, even on Blu-ray. It's been out of print for a very long time. So that is one of those titles that I really enjoyed from the 80s. It's a comedy, romance, workplace. It's got some great actresses in it and actors in it, and it is just a fun film. Let me know in the comment section below if you own the out-of-print Blu-ray, if you knew it was out of print and worth so much, but make sure to comment below if you enjoyed these films. Another personal favorite film of mine from 1980 is Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve. I absolutely love how the film was filmed, and then obviously the story of time travel mixed with the sci-fi elements, mixed with the romance, all combined together so well. It really was a great performance by Christopher Reeve that was not a Superman film. A lot of people forget he did a lot of other films that were very enjoyable and well done as well. Somewhere in Time is one of those that deserves a 4K Ultra HD release. Though sadly I've not heard anybody is working on it, and it is not something that I heard is actually being planned. But man, it would be a pretty darn cool 4K restoration that we could get, because that film is absolutely stellar. If you have not checked it out yet, I highly recommend the film. It is just a wonderful 80s film. Now, if you haven't done so yet, make sure to give this video a like and a thumbs up for me. Hit that subscribe button and the bell notification. Just like with this video series, I do a lot of these exclusive video series sharing a lot of insider information and things that you're not going to find anywhere else. You never want to miss out on any of this exclusive content. So make sure to go down there, give this video a like and a thumbs up for me, hit that subscribe button and the bell notification. Next up, we have one of my favorite Ridley Scott films, Black Rain. If you've checked out this film, it fits in line with Ridley Scott's really good thrillers. I've always really enjoyed this film. The Blu-ray release is okay, but it could really use a nice 4K scan and restoration of the original camera negatives, because there's lots of things on this that are just softer in elements other than obviously the camera lenses and filters they used in it. It could look amazing with better film grain, stability, and everything if it got a nice 4K restoration. Next up is one of my favorite DC Comics 80s superhero films. It's more or less about a more unknown DC Comics kind of superhero-ish that existed in the comics and then they made into an 80s film. I really thought it was enjoyable, and I can tell you right now, as recently I just announced yesterday before filming this is coming out with a brand new 4K restoration and 4K scan of the original camera elements of both the theatrical and the unrated cuts on 4K Ultra HD. As you're seeing above, I'm showing you the new cover artwork for the new 4K Ultra HD release that's coming out from MVD. I'll post that direct pre-order link, as I shared before, in the community section here on the YouTube channel, down below in the description section. Hugely excited about this one because I've always really enjoyed the film. I have numerous versions of it on Blu-ray, so I'll be curious to find out how it compares quality-wise to the previous Blu-ray releases. So hopefully that'll be a title I get to do my exclusive 4K versus Blu-ray image comparisons to let you know how it compares to all these previous Blu-ray releases. But that 4K release is coming out on July 25th of 2023 this year. So not too long from now, about 2 months from now, we'll be able to own it on 4K Ultra HD. So that's a big exciting release. Next up, we have a personal favorite of mine, Ladyhawke. Now this is the Warner Archive Blu-ray release, and this film was released in 1985. It has Matthew Broderick in it, Michelle Pfeiffer in it. It's like a medieval fantasy basically, so medieval fantasy all combined together with some romance. It's a really, really great 80s film. I love the like fantasy medieval elements they used in the 80s and how they went all in on them. This film is great, though I can tell you this is not one I've heard anything about a 4K restoration or release. Warner Archive does very few and very little 4K releases, and they're mostly print on demand or manufactured on demand releases. They've only done very, very few of them. This is not one I've heard is coming, but man, this would be a really great one because this is such a cool film. Next up is a hidden gem from the 80s, the 1985 D.A.R.Y.L. And I'll tell you, the Blu-ray releases of this are extremely hard to locate. I'm going to put the direct links that I can find in the description section down below and as a pinned comment. This is one I don't see us getting because it wasn't released on Blu-ray in most territories around the world. Actually, in Australia, the Blu-ray was canceled. In the US, the Blu-ray was canceled. It is one I really do hope we get, and Sony owns the rights for this, so I could see Sony kind of surprising us, just like they did with Real Genius. If you haven't checked out that review here on my YouTube channel, I did Real Genius about a year or so ago when they announced and released that. And that was one of those great 80s films that I absolutely loved, and that was a surprise 4K release that Sony released, and I've always really enjoyed that film with Val Kilmer. This is one of those that I enjoyed as well, and I won't give it away if you haven't seen it, but if you remember this film, comment below and let me know, because it's about a boy who's a genius, or everyone thinks he's a genius. He's kind of found out in the middle of nowhere, and it's got one of those mixtures heavily of like Flight of the Navigator with E.T. vibes, and it's all mixed together. Really well done film. So enjoyable. I watched this all growing up, thought it was so cool. It's got some creepy elements in it and some things that are really suspenseful in it. And I've always enjoyed it and hope that it gets a 4K restoration and release. The Blu-ray's okay. It's not amazing. Don't go into it expecting it to look amazing. This is the only Blu-ray release of this film anywhere worldwide. It's been very hard to get a hold of. I actually had to pay a ton of money to get my copy. But it's one of those films, if you remember this film, man, would this make an awesome cult classic 4K Ultra HD release that I really hope Sony is going to consider. These are types of films I love getting on 4K because they're what I grew up watching and loving, just like Flight of the Navigator. Next up, we have the remake of The Blob from 1988. This film is a really over-the-top 80s gore effects and goo effects and sci-fi horror elements all mixed together wonderfully well. I really like the 80s remake a lot. It's a lot of 80s charm and 80s cheese, if you know what I mean. that's blended so well together that you can't not love the Blob. It is really a fun time. I absolutely love the cover artwork that Shout Factory and Scream Factory did for this release. I can tell you this is being worked on for a future 4K Ultra HD release. So we will be getting this on 4K Ultra HD, which is an exciting one because I've always really loved this film. Next up we have Mr. Mom, Michael Keaton, Terry Garr. Wonderful comedy with some romance about family life, and basically he has to stay home and she has to go get a job because he loses his job and can't get a job. She's the only one that can make money. It's done very sweetly and very tenderly. It's not done to make fun of him, the husband, or the wife. And it's done in the way that in the 80s they respected both sides of it, both the husband and the wife, and that's why I've always appreciated this comedy. Now it is written by John Hughes. A lot of people didn't know that, but I can tell you this is being worked on for a future 4K Ultra HD release as well. So this is one that we will be getting on 4K in the future, and I'm happy for it because, to be honest with you, a lot of films made nowadays, if this film was made nowadays, they would have destroyed the dynamic between the husband and wife and done it in a way that I think would have destroyed the family dynamic and tried to make it in a way that was just too modern, that messes up everything that made this film charming. I like how, in a way, yes, he feels bad that she's having to work, but in a way that he understands and she understands, he respects her, she respects him. Yes, there's some squabbling and some fighting in it, but it's done comedically, and I think it's done very well in this film and makes this a very enjoyable 80s comedy. Now, if you enjoy all this content that I work hard to create and put my heart and soul into, make sure to support the creation of every single video here on my YouTube channel by joining my Collectors VIP Club. By joining that club, it only costs you a couple of bucks every month, but makes a drastic difference on me being able to continue creating videos just like this. Every one of these videos takes me a massive amount of time and work to compile, do all the special effects, the images, the screenshots, every type of video I create here on my channel. The reason they're so darn exclusive is because of the amount of time and work I have to put into creating every single one of these. So make sure if you enjoy all this work and heart and soul I put into every single one of these videos, make sure to join my Collectors VIP Club. It only costs you a couple of bucks, but makes a drastic world of difference in me being able to continually create videos just like this here on my YouTube channel. And I just want to say thank you to every single one of my current Collectors VIP Club members. You truly do make a world of difference. I really appreciate you, and I can't say it enough. And your continued VIP Club support truly does make a big difference. Next up, we have Firefox from 1982 and Heartbreak Ridge from 1986. Two Clint Eastwood classics that I love. I'm on a huge Clint Eastwood binge lately since they've been releasing a lot of his Western films on 4K Ultra HD. These are two that I would love to have on 4K Ultra HD. Though I can tell you, Clint Eastwood kind of keeps up to date on what of his films are coming out or what's being worked on and what's not being worked on. Neither one of these films currently are being worked on for 4K releases, but they are ones that I would really like to get on 4K Ultra HD, and I hope that Warner Brothers steps up their releasing schedule and starts to work on more and more restorations to release them on 4K, because so far for their 100th anniversary, they've been really slow on announcing new titles and releasing new titles. Seems like we get a couple every couple of months, and that's about it. I was hoping we'd get a lot during their 100th anniversary. Maybe they're waiting till the end of the year to start pumping out tons of them. But I will have some exciting announcements of some 100th anniversary titles they're going to be releasing from Warner Brothers later on in this video, but I would really like to get these two. Another personal favorite action thriller I love is To Live and Die in LA from 1985. Now again, if you follow me on my Twitter or if you follow me here on my community section, I just announced that the day before I actually started filming this, that's coming out on 4K Ultra HD with a brand new 4K scan of the original camera negatives from Kino Lorber. And that's going to be coming out on July 18th of 2023, so very soon here. Basically in about a month and a half, we're going to get that on 4K Ultra HD. I should be getting that in early for review. That is another title that Kino Lorber is sending to me early for review. I'm going to dive into it, check it out, tell you how it looks in comparison to the Blu-ray. That's one of those titles I really enjoyed, so that's a big, exciting announcement. Another title from 1985 that I get asked a lot about is Clue the movie. I got an exciting announcement to share with all of you. Paramount is working on a brand new 4K Ultra HD release of Clue the movie that is going to be coming out here. This is an exciting one I'll be excited for because I've actually bought Clue the movie on Blu-ray twice, and then before that I had it on DVD. I always really enjoyed this, like, I don't know, it's kind of like a spoof crime mystery. Basically, it's based on, obviously, Clue, the board game. It has numerous different endings in it, alternate endings that I thought was kind of a clever idea. Anyhow, this is going to be coming out on 4K Ultra HD, so I'm excited about this one. Next up, we have Nighthawks from 1981. Sylvester Stallone in a big suspense, intrigue, mystery, and it is one of those that has some great suspenseful moments. I think Sylvester Stallone is pretty darn cool in this. He has a beard, obviously, so he looks drastically different in it. But I do like Sylvester Stallone in this movie, and it's always been one of those 80s films I really enjoyed. I can let you know right now, this is coming out on 4K Ultra HD. It's being worked on for a future 4K Ultra HD release. It's just like I recently did the review for Midnight Run. If you haven't checked out that review, you'll want to go check out that review. I did a 4K versus Blu-ray image comparison of that. I enjoyed Midnight Run, but this one is way better than Midnight Run. I really enjoyed the suspense in this, and I think Sylvester Stallone is underrated in this, and it is one of those films that a lot of people missed out on in the 80s. Next up, we have Romancing the Stone and Jewel of the Nile from 1984 and 1985. Both of these are owned by Disney now, and they are not being planned or worked on for future 4K Ultra HD releases, sadly. But I love the films, and they would be some cool 4K Ultra HD releases. I can tell you, because I couldn't find my other copy, so I had to go buy another one. And I'm actually waiting on my other copy of Romancing the Stone to arrive because I couldn't find my Blu-ray copies. And these are getting harder and harder to find because my understanding is these are going out of print. So if it is one of those things you enjoy these films, don't wait too long to buy them on Blu-ray, because as my understanding is, as most of you know, Disney is not touching any of their catalog releases on 4K or even releasing or re-releasing 20th Century Fox releases on Blu-ray. And these are really fun and enjoyable 80s films that it's really sad that they're not going to be doing 4K restorations on such a massive catalog of titles that Disney owns now. You know, I've said this before, but it's really criminal. I really feel like somebody needs to just buy all of Disney's releases and catalog titles while they're in the mode of trying to sell them off. Spend the money and you'd be able to make billions on doing 4K restorations on the massive amount of titles they have with 20th Century Fox and Disney catalog titles. Man, it would just be an amazing thing if some other studio could license those out. But we'll see if Disney will start doing more of that this year. I know they've been starting to do limited titles and small amounts of it, like the Mill Creek deal. You know, I work with Mill Creek, they send me things for review, and their deal that they're doing is simply for Blu-ray releases of some of Disney's older catalog releases. They're not for new 4K releases or anything like that. It's simply going to be Blu-ray releases of basically Disney's older like Blu-ray releases. So I'm hoping we do see some titles from Touchstone maybe that are older Disney or Hollywood Pictures that are coming out on Blu-ray, like House Guest. I would have loved to have that on Blu-ray. So I would like to see that. Hopefully Mill Creek Steel has some surprises in it, but I'm hoping some other studios can get a hold of titles like this and release a bunch of these classic films that really deserve 4K restorations, because it stinks that a lot of these are going out of print and are getting harder and harder to find. I'll link down below Jewel of the Nile and Romancing the Stone Blu-rays if you want to get them while they're still available before they go out of print. I'll list those down below. Continuing with the crappy Disney announcements. Willow. This is one of those that would be an amazing 4K release if done correctly. It desperately needs a 4K restoration. The Blu-ray's okay, but it's not amazing. Man, this film so deserves a 4K release and 4K restoration. But as you know, Disney owns this, just like what they did recently on the streaming service. They got rid of Willow, the TV series, and deleted it permanently. They're not selling it to anyone else. They're just getting rid of a lot of their stuff on their streaming service as tax write-offs and just saying, hey, we're not going to release it anymore, and no one else is allowed to release it. Sadly, because of that, I don't see us ever getting this on 4K Ultra HD at the time being, unless, like I said, some studio steps in and convinces Disney somehow to license out all of their releases to do new 4K releases of. But as of right now, there's nothing in the works, and this isn't being touched on, and because of what they did with that TV series, I think this is going to be like the last thing they touch on, because the Willow TV series didn't do well for them. But this is one of those I really would love on 4K Ultra HD. Next up, we have Cyborg from 1989 with Jean-Claude Van Damme. It's one of those sci-fi cult classic films. I've always enjoyed this film. It's got some cheese in it, but again, not too over-the-top cheese, but just enough that it's 80s classic goodness. I really enjoyed this film. I can tell you some good news about this. There's actually two different studios, one in Germany, and then there's actually one in the UK that was working on it. The one in the UK has not announced anything since they originally did, but the one in Germany has talked about it numerous times that they're working on a 4K Ultra HD release of Cyborg. So this is one that will be coming out on 4K Ultra HD. I don't know if it's going to be one of those that goes into my like hidden unknown video series when it does release, because if it's one of those German ones, that's where this will go, my review and everything, into that video series. If you haven't checked out that video series, that's where I dive into a bunch of like unknown releases from all over the world, 4K restorations of classic movies, modern movies. It doesn't matter what genre it is. It can be romance, sci-fi, western. They're all contained in that video series. You'll want to go check out that. There's a bunch of videos in that series with titles that are never touched on and reviewed by anybody other than me. So it's one of those you'll want to go check out after you get done watching this video. But we are going to be getting Cyborg in some form or shape on 4K Ultra HD. Now, getting to a Warner Brothers 100 title that is coming out. The 1983 National Lampoon's Vacation is coming out with a brand new 4K restoration on June 27th of 2023. And that is a brand new 4K Ultra HD release during Warner Brothers 100th anniversary that they're releasing under that title. So that is coming out on June 27th. I will be getting that in early for review to dive into, to do my exclusive 4K versus Blu-ray image comparison, to let you know the quality of that, how the disc stacks up, and if it's actually worth buying. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to go down there and subscribe to this channel so you never miss out on any of this content. But that's a really exciting one. Chevy Chase is in it. I did originally the Christmas Vacation review last year when that came out, and I really enjoyed that 4K Ultra HD release. So I'm excited they're continuing to release the rest of the Vacation movies on 4K Ultra HD, because the Christmas Vacation, if you haven't checked out my review on that, that's available right now on this YouTube channel as well, was a good release by Warner Brothers. Let's hope they continue that streak with this next Vacation 4K. Now, I will have the pre-order links for all of these that I'm announcing that are available in the description section and as a pinned comment in the comment section below. So if you want to pre-order any of these 4Ks, they are listed down in the description section if they're available to pre-order. Otherwise, all the Blu-rays for all the other titles are listed down there below as well. Another sci-fi cult classic film from 1981 is Outland with Sean Connery in it. It's one of those kind of murder, mystery, crime thrillers in a sci-fi setting and universe. That's a very gritty and dirty sci-fi universe. Literally, it's like, you know, mining and gas and everything else, and all the people there are very dirty. It's a very gritty feeling sci-fi film. But it is a really enjoyable cult classic film that I've always very much enjoyed. Sean Connery's performance in it was great, though I can tell you that I have not heard anybody is working on it. Now, obviously, Warner Brothers owns it, but it's not one that's being worked on or touched on at the moment. But it would make for a pretty cool 4K restoration because the Blu-ray is sadly very poor. So it's another one of those titles that would be nice to get on 4K. Next up is one of my favorite Cameron Crowe romantic comedy classics from 1989, Say Anything. Now, this does have John Cusack in it, and it is a really enjoyable film. You've probably recognized him standing there with the speaker above his head. That's like one of the most relatable scenes in a film that just about everybody knows that scene, even if they've never seen the film itself. Cameron Crowe has some of the best soundtracks in every single one of his films. Even if you've never seen his films, you go listen to the soundtracks for every one of these films, and literally, I can't think of any other film that I love every single song he puts in his soundtracks, except for what Cameron Crowe does. They're absolutely amazing. They're like a classic thing on its own. It's just his soundtracks. But this is one of those 80s films that you gotta see. Sadly, it's not coming out on 4K Ultra HD because 20th Century Fox and Disney owns it. It's not being touched on at all. So if you're wanting to get this on Blu-ray, this is the only Blu-ray that's available. I'll link it down below. It's a great comedy romance film from the 80s that if you have not checked this out yet, if you like Cameron Crowe's other films, he's done a bunch of them that I absolutely love. I can't really think of any Cameron Crowe film that I don't like or love. That's how good of a director he really is. This is one of those you've got to check out. Next up, we have Troop Beverly Hills from 1989. Now, this has Shelley Long in it, who I absolutely love her as an actress. She is so sweet and adorable. I've always really enjoyed her. If you want to check out, I recently did the Cheers Complete Series Blu-ray Remastered TV series set. I did that review exclusively here on my YouTube channel if you want to check that one out as well. It has Shelley Long in it, obviously. Beverly Hills. It's very, very funny, though I will say watching it now as an adult, there is more crass humor in it than I remember and more language than I remember growing up. My parents let me watch it all the time, but there was quite a bit more language than I remembered. But I really enjoy it. My wife loves this film. I can tell you the 4K restoration, 4K scan has already been done by Sony. It is all ready to go. I just know that Sony said they already did all the work for it. So I don't know if this is one that'll come out in their like Columbia Classics Volume 4 collection, or if they're gonna release another box set with this in it, or release it as an individual title. I just know that Sony already said all of the work's already done for it. I just don't know when it's coming out. But this would be a pretty dang cool one because it is a fun 80s comedy. Next up, we have the 1987 dark comedy, Throw Momma from the Train, directed by Danny DeVito with Billy Crystal in it. It's really a dark comedy. If you've ever seen like a dark comedy, it's got humor that you have to kind of watch it 2 or 3 times to get all the humor in it. And it's enjoyable. Though I will tell you for this, the 4K rights are available, but I do not know if somebody's bought it or they're going to release this on 4K. I just know that with MGM, they have the rights available and been selling and licensing out all their 4K releases. This is one of them that I do know is available, but I have not heard of any studio buying the rights for it or working on a 4K restoration for it. Next up, we have Supergirl from 1984. Now, if you've recently checked out my Superman 4K Ultra HD review, I went and dived into all of those, did my exclusive 4K versus Blu-ray image comparisons of those 4K releases. In that set though, they didn't give us Superman Returns or Supergirl on 4K. So this is one of those, I really want to finish up all of my Superman films on 4K. Supergirl deserves to be released on 4K Ultra HD, though I do hope, if they ever do it, that they go back and do all of the different cuts of the film. Because there's obviously the rare director's cut of the film that only exists in SD on DVD. I wish they could get all those elements together and release a 4K restoration of Supergirl. It'd be really cool to see the unrated director's cut with all of the extended footage, more of the violence in it. That would have made Supergirl such a better film if it was released that way originally. So this is one of those that would make a really cool 4K Ultra HD release, especially because that Superman set, man, Warner Brothers could earn a lot of reputation from a lot of like comic book fans if they keep releasing more and more of these types of titles on 4K Ultra HD. Because I did enjoy that Superman set, but it did have some limitations that were disappointing, that there was some things that I wish that they would make up for it by saying, hey, we're gonna give you Superman Returns on 4K Ultra HD, Supergirl on 4K Ultra HD, bring all the rest of the Superman films onto 4K Ultra HD. The Color Purple from 1985 by Steven Spielberg is being planned for a future 4K Ultra HD release. So my hope is, remember I was saying that I hope Warner Brothers has a bunch waiting at the end of the year? I am hoping this is one of those that's coming out later this year during their 100th anniversary, that maybe they're kind of just doing, 2 titles every couple of months here, and then by the end of the year, they release like 1 every week and there's just tons of them at the end of the year. Another big release of a comedy classic from 1985 is Weird Science. John Hughes did this film. It is more of a crass teenager comedy. And when I say crass, it has a ton of sexual humor and content in it. It's actually kind of surprising to go back and watch it now. Point is this is coming out on 4K Ultra HD. It's a brand new 4K Ultra HD release that was just announced basically 2 days before I started filming this video. It's coming out from Arrow Video on a limited edition 4K Ultra HD release set, and it's coming out on August 22nd of 2023 this year. So that's a very exciting 80s film that's going to be coming out on 4K. I'll post that pre-order link in the description section and as a pinned comment down below. Let me know if you remember this film or if you've seen Weird Science before. Next up is another personal favorite of mine, Excalibur from 1981. It has some really cool scenes in it. It's well written, it's very enjoyable. It's one that I do hope Warner Brothers is going to be working on during this 100th anniversary. There's been rumblings, and when I say rumblings, I'll give you an example. There's been numerous things kind of asking would people be interested in it. There's other reviewers that have put out like posts asking would people want to see it on 4K, trying to get Warner Brothers kind of interested in it. But other than that, it's just been little things. There was an actual survey from Best Buy that they did a survey asking basically that and a couple other titles, would you be interested on 4K steelbooks of them? And that was here a couple of years ago, so I don't know if it's something that they're still working on or there wasn't enough votes or people just basically weren't interested in enough that they've kind of scrapped it, but it would be a pretty cool 4K release. Another film that's a sci-fi cult classic is The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. And that title is extremely long for a movie, and it came out in 1984. I do have some good news. That went out of print on Blu-ray a long time ago, but it's actually being worked on for a future 4K Ultra HD release. So if you missed out on that previous Blu-ray, don't worry, don't go out there trying to buy the Blu-ray right now. It is being worked on and planned for a future 4K Ultra HD release, so we will be seeing that coming out on 4K in the future here. So that's a really exciting one because it is ridiculously expensive because of that Blu-ray going out of print. It has become extremely hard to get a hold of and extremely expensive. Another personal favorite film of mine that I've talked about quite a bit here on this YouTube channel over the last several years is Tequila Sunrise with Kurt Russell, Mel Gibson, Michelle Pfeiffer in it. And I will tell you, this is one of those quintessential 80s films that has near perfect music, pacing, acting, story, the scenes and how they film it, and just the California coastline and the gorgeous, I don't even know how to explain to you, but everything about this film screams 80s goodness. I really can't explain to you how enjoyable this film is. I love watching it over and over again. It has such a good feeling to it. This film deserves a 4K Ultra HD release, and I really hope we get to see one. No announcements of this one though, and it's not being worked on. But if you haven't checked out this film, I'll post the Blu-ray link down there below. Now it is an adult film. It's rated R, it has violence, language, and some brief sexual content. But the film itself just absolutely exudes everything I loved about 80s filmmaking. And it is one of those from 1988 that Mel Gibson and Kurt Russell play off of each other perfectly. And I do think these are hard to find nowadays. How enjoyable some of these films were where they buddy up big actors together. We just don't see films like this with big actors and big names that could carry a film without tons of special effects. And it's literally just a lot of good acting in it with a fun story. We just don't see a lot of films made like this anymore, and I miss these films. Next up we have the 1986 sci-fi cult classic, The Wraith. I really liked this Blu-ray release. It's very enjoyable. I love the slipcover on it. It's got that cool metallic slipcover. This comes from Lionsgate Vestron Video Series line of collector's edition, basically Blu-ray releases. I'll post the Blu-ray links down below. This is one that I really had hoped that Lionsgate would release on 4K Ultra HD. There's no plans for it, and a lot of Lionsgate's 4K Ultra HD releases of catalog releases have been put on the back burner or canceled. They were doing more and more of them for a while, and then they just kind of stopped, started this Vestron Video Series line, and it seems like most of their like cult classic films from 80s, 90s, things like that are just getting Blu-ray releases. So I don't know if this is the best we're ever going to get of this, but this was a pretty cool Blu-ray release, but I would like to have this on 4K. Another Vestron series line on Blu-ray is Steel Dawn. This is another one from 1987 that I would love to see on 4K. In this Vestron Video Series line, there are some amazing cult classic films that I really enjoy watching. So if you haven't checked out some of these, this is another one you'll want to add. It's kind of more a dystopian future. It's kind of like the Mad Max dystopian universe, kind of sci-fi world with Patrick Swayze in it. It's a fun 80s film if you haven't checked it out yet. A favorite of mine by James Belushi is the 1989 K9. Now he did a sequel to this, K911 as well, but the original has always been my favorite. I did like K911 as well, though the K911 is not released on Blu-ray except in one territory. This is the US Blu-ray release by Universal Studios. It's very hard to come by. It's not sold very many places, but I've always enjoyed this, so I did get it on Blu-ray. It's one of those comedy, like buddy cop, but obviously he's with a dog. And it'll give you a lot of the feelings like Turner and Hooch did, but I think James Belushi is really good in this. He's very funny in this, and I've always grown up enjoying this film. It is a comedy film that you can't take too serious. No, it's not 100% serious and realistic throughout it. Some of the things the dog does is unrealistic. But you know what? James Belushi sells this film, and he's good in it. And that's what I'm looking for when I go back and watch a lot of these 80s films. This is one I hope gets a 4K release, but I don't think it's very likely because this is one of those manufactured on demand Blu-ray releases. But I'll post the Blu-ray link down there if you want to get this. Another comedy classic from 1985 is Brewster's Millions. And this is with Richard Pryor and John Candy. I do hope we get to see this on 4K Ultra HD because this is one of those comedy classics from the 80s that everybody needs to see. Rounding this out, I hope we get to see An American Tail from 1986 and Land Before Time from 1988. Both of those Don Bluth, Steven Spielberg productions were absolutely wonderful. I liked the sequel to obviously An American Tail, Fievel Goes West, but those two films need to be on 4K Ultra HD. That animation really rivaled Disney's animation at the time in the 80s. And if you know the history of Don Bluth, obviously he worked at Disney and all of that story and how then he worked with Steven Spielberg. There were so many of those great Don Bluth animated films that deserve 4K Ultra HD and 4K restorations. Because the Blu-rays are okay, they're not amazing. My kids watch them and the colors are just desaturated and they're okay. But man, they would look beautiful if they got nice 4K scans and restorations. Just like what I recently talked about with Prince of Egypt, Universal was testing out animated films with Prince of Egypt on 4K Ultra HD. I reviewed that here on this YouTube channel if you have not checked out that release yet. It was a great looking 4K release. That is them diving into animated titles that Universal owns. They own The American Tail, and they own obviously Fievel Goes West, and The Land Before Time, and I could go on and on. If they can release more of those 4K restorations of animated titles with the native film grain and things, they could have an amazing catalog of animated titles to rival the fact that Disney isn't releasing much of their animated films on 4K. I mean, heck, I reviewed that Cinderella here. That was, earlier on this year, but that was a Disney Movie Club exclusive. That's rare. I mean, we're only getting like one Disney animated title a year at this rate, which is horrible. But this is where Universal could step in and start providing a lot of that to fill in that gap of missing 4K animated classic titles. They have a lot that they could release on 4K Ultra HD. So I do hope we get to see a lot of those coming out from Universal. They would be really excited. My kids would love them. Heck, I love them. I mean, even when I was older, I'd watch them. The animation, the stories in those is just wonderful. I mean, Don Bluth and Steven Spielberg did some amazing work together and really provided some heart-touching animated titles that, like I said, when I say they rivaled Disney, some of them by Don Bluth and Steven Spielberg were better than what Disney was releasing. So I'm really hoping Universal is going to dive into those here this year and start releasing some more of those. So make sure to start the conversation in the comment section below. Let me know how excited you were for some of these titles that I announced, that I revealed, a bunch of these surprises I shared with all of you. Make sure to start that conversation in the comment section below. Make sure if there's titles you're commenting on to keep it to the date range of 1980 to 1989 only. Let me know what of these titles you're thrilled about that I announced, and what of these you're excited or hoping are coming to 4K Ultra HD. I always love hearing from all of you. If you decide any of these titles you want to buy or add to your collection, or a lot of these Blu-rays that aren't coming out on 4K that you want to own that you haven't checked out yet, I post all those links in the description section and as a pinned comment in the comment section right below this video. So if you want to buy any of those, make sure to click on those links I've posted down there below. They never cost you a penny extra when you click on those links, but those do help to support this YouTube channel just a tiny bit. So make sure if you're going to buy any to click on those links I've posted down there below. As always, if you enjoy the time, the hard work, and my heart and soul that I pour into every one of these videos, make sure to join my Collectors VIP Club. That is the best way to support the creation of these videos. It only costs you as the viewer a couple of bucks every month. You can find that change in the seat of your car, but that drastically helps me to be able to continue doing this. And I need all of you, my viewers and subscribers, support through my Collectors VIP Club to be able to always continue doing this. It's really important to not wait for somebody else to support these videos. I need your support. Make sure to join my Collectors VIP Club. To all my current VIP Club members, as I said earlier, you make a world of difference. I really appreciate you, and I want to say thank you. I've always got something new, early, exclusive, and exciting coming out very soon.